Ladies and gentlemen, it is now 7:10. Sorry for the late start, but a quorum of members is present, so the annual budget hearing and meeting of the Board of Education of the School District of Berlin is called to order. Again, I know most of you sat through this, but we'll do it again. In recognition of the serious important nature of our efforts here, we will join in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This is a public meeting of the Board of Education. Prior to this meeting, notice was given to the public last Friday by posting the agenda at each district school, the district office, and the city library. The agenda was also posted on the district website. A copy of the agenda was forwarded to the Journal-Sentinel and the Waukesha-Freeman and the New Berlin Now, all of which have filed requests for all public notices. At this point, I'd like to just introduce those that are on the stage here. If you have not had a chance to meet Diana Hansen on the far end there, she quietly runs the district, right, Joe?
Yes.
Nate Nickerson, board member. Jeff Kurth, also board member. Susan Manley. I'm Dave Maxey. Tom David. Jody Kugler. Amy Crosby. Roger Dixon on the far end. He's our district financial officer, or CFO. And Joe Garza, our district superintendent, is down there on the floor. At this time, Roger Dixon, the Chief Financial Officer, will give us a presentation on the district budget. I ask that everyone hold any questions or comments until after the presentation. At that time, I will open the floor for questions or comments on the annual budget. At that point, I'll also ask that you come down, state your name and address, ask your question or make your statement. Each presentation is restricted to a maximum of 3 minutes. Presentations are not to be designed for the purpose of engaging others in debate in this forum. The floor will be open to discussion of the annual budget. Any discussion off topic or of personal attacks of anyone will not be tolerated and will be ruled out of order. Okay.
Okay. We are actually not just doing a budget presentation. We're actually going to walk you through our 4 district strategic goals, one of which is being fiscally responsible, and that's where Roger will come in and present his portion of the budget in the budget presentation. For those of you that aren't aware, we have 4 strategic goals. Our first one, which is probably the most important, and the reason why we're here is really to ensure that we increase student performance to make sure that all students are prepared for success in college careers and in future opportunities. And the accolades do continue in the School District of New Berlin. These are areas where we are being recognized nationally, basically for the rigor of our curriculum and the challenges that our students actually have to face. They're not necessarily just kind of handouts per se. These are hard-earned recognitions based on our students' performance and also based on our teachers getting those kids prepared for that. We are also not slouches in the area of being recognized in the state. For example, UW System Ray Cross came and visited the School District of New Berlin last fall, and he came to check out 4 of our programs, which are around IT, manufacturing, technology, and engineering. He also checked out what we believe is one of the coolest areas, which I'll kind of get into later, but it's our CNA lab. It's our Certified Nursing Assistant Program lab that we have housed at New Berlin Eisenhower. Now, I'm going to get into the whole notion of great partnerships and mutually beneficial partnerships later, as that's another one of our strategic goals. But I want to talk to you about our great partnership in the CNA lab. I happen to serve on the board for Linden Grove, which is a facility for those that need either medical recovery or have aging needs and so on and so forth. While serving on that board, and prior to actually being asked to serve on that board, they came to us 3 years ago and said, we have a CNA shortage in our program. And we said, we'd love to be able to help because we've got students that want opportunities to become CNAs and to have that experience. So we applied for a grant, and we received one of several Fast Forward grants based on Governor Walker's Blueprint for Prosperity initiative at the state level. Linden Grove donated about $30,000 to $40,000 of in-kind resources, including hospital beds, including medical materials, including varying different things from them. And good thing to note that we are now pumping out roughly 60 CNAs annually, and anywhere between 10 to 15 of those CNAs are actually being hired by Linden Grove and helping them in that shortage that they had. We also received accolades from Governor Walker. He actually came and visited the school district back after his state address tour. We were one of the first school districts that he visited and commented about our college and career readiness initiative. He then further recognized us by granting us the Governor's Financial Literacy Award, as well as us being awarded a financial literacy grant from the governor's office as well. So we are getting recognized for the great work that our students are doing on behalf of the work that our teachers are putting in with them as well. We have consistently been successful in athletics and activities. Most recently, Eisenhower and West both attained state championships, of which we are very proud of. But it doesn't stop there. Our arts programs are second to none, obviously in an incredible facility such as this, and we definitely take advantage of it. Moving on to our next strategic goal. And again, what I do want to point out in this strategic goal is the notion of mutually beneficial partnerships. So far too often, school districts, and I got to admit, we've been guilty of this as well, we like to put our hands out and expect things to come in one way. Well, it shouldn't necessarily always be that way, and that was the example that I shared with you on, from Linden Grove, that they're actually getting something out of it too. It's not just a one-way street. Annually, we host a partnership breakfast that includes institutions of higher ed, private business. It includes the county exec's office, state representatives, as well as representatives from Washington, D.C. that attend this breakfast. Further, we also partnered with varying industries, and you can see on the bottom right-hand corner, we have a lot of our students going out into the field to find out what exactly manufacturing means, what exactly IT means, what exactly the healthcare field means. And they're getting firsthand experience as to what these things are, do, smell, look like in the field. Well, let me go back to the CNA example. It's great that people find that as an experience that's good for them, but it's also just as good for the kids that say, this match is not for me. In the time of increasing student debt, the last thing we want is to pump out another student to get out there, get into the medical field, and find out that it's not for them. And now they're strapped with loads of debt, in a field that they don't want to actually be involved in. And so we want to support those efforts. We also are giving back. Probably about 8 years ago, we started our annual Veterans Day celebration, which allows us to honor our local veterans. We also had a jump-a-thon, or Jump for Your Future-a-thon over at Poplar Creek. We partner with Junior Achievement, and we actually have kids do a month-long program called BizTown, where all of our fifth graders actually interview for jobs, they research jobs, and then they actually get to go out to Menominee Falls and attend an actual town where it's run by the kids, for the kids, and they actually get to experience what it's like to be in the real world for that day. And I actually can't see. Oh, then of course we have Discover New Berlin, which is actually a celebration that we have in partnership with the Chamber of Commerce, with the Rotary Club and other service organizations, where we bring in and basically say, this is the city of New Berlin, this is the school district of New Berlin. And then most recently, the Malone Park gathering, we were able to kind of partner with that as well. Our third strategic goal is that of maintaining and promoting fiscal responsibility that reflects a commitment to student learning. That's also representative of what our school district and our community members seek. And so therefore, this is the formal budget presentation. And then I'll kind of circle back and talk to you about our last strategic goal. Roger.
Thank you, Joe. I think this has been a great start. Normally, this meeting has been nothing except the budget. And really, a budget is nothing more than a bunch of numbers on papers. Budget isn't the important thing. It's the things that they represent. It's the stories behind those numbers. And Joe was sharing with us a number of those stories, a number of the successes that we've been able to experience in this district. And one of these buttons goes forward. Okay. One of our achievements over the last couple of years has been making substantial investments in the facilities of the school district. Eisenhower being the primary recipient of those monies, but not the only recipient. We've spent money in every single school to upgrade and make enhancements. Eisenhower being the oldest school without having been touched for quite some time, got the emphasis for the last couple of years. Completed the courtyard, dedicated that May 17th, honored two long-term employees by naming the courtyard in their honor. We've finally completed the swimming pool, a contentious issue for probably 3 to 4 years, but with the proceeds of the sale of Glen Park, we're able to invest in the pool. We went from a substandard pool that couldn't be used for competition to a very well-regarded pool that we're hoping will be able to attract a number of meets and teams to this community. Parking lot, improve the drainage, improve the lot itself, putting in a new traffic light in on Sunny Slope Road, made different changes in the way this traffic circulation so that you don't have to dodge cars while you're trying to cross the parking lot. It was a lot more fun then, but not good, not healthy necessarily. So we've finally gotten that done. If you've been over there, it's a very easy thing to see what a great job it has been done. I'm going to take just a second to talk about that because we've got some more things coming down the road with long-range planning. Why did it take us so long to tackle that parking lot? The reason is very simply that when it was originally constructed, it was constructed under a concept of let's save money. So it was not constructed properly. So now for us to redo it, we're going to do it the right way so the future taxpayers aren't saddled with huge costs. We can keep it maintained. So it was more expensive, took us longer, but it's been done right. Took out all the underlayment, recreated a base the way it should have been done the first time. We've got similar problems at the asphalt in most of our buildings. So we'll be tackling those over the course of the next several years. We've upgraded HVAC at all of the buildings in the district, except this building, one still remains. and that included adding air conditioner to Poplar Creek and Orchard Lane. I'd like to tell you that it's going to be done, but the project got behind, and Buildings and Grounds Director is fit to be tied, but it will be done. We'll be able to get those buildings air conditioned. One of the things the board has asked me to do and is held accountable for is doing more financial planning rather than just financial reaction. Set us up for the future. Do things now that can make it so that we can operate efficiently and effectively in the future. We've been focusing on what we call the long-term fiscal capacity, rather than just focusing on taxes or just focusing on cost cutting. Fiscal capacity means how can we make the things that we have to do, how can we do those less expensively, like operate our buildings? What other revenue opportunities do we have out there, like business partnerships, grants, getting additional help from government funding agencies, as well as looking at our costs. So fiscal capacity is more than cost. It's looking at the total picture. We've done some long-range planning. We have a long-range maintenance facility maintenance and remodeling plan. We've got long-range equipment replacement plans, and we have some specific strategies that have been implemented over time so that we don't have to come before you year after year and say we have this structural deficit, we have this structural deficit, we have this structural deficit. That's what you've heard from me probably the last 4 years. We're not out of the structural deficit, but we have made a lot of really good decisions to help us manage financial resources, make sure that we're going to have the money to put into the classroom going down in the future. Our capital investments have freed up, is literally freeing up funds for student programming. We've reduced our repair and maintenance costs by replacing old HVAC with new HVAC systems, heating, ventilating, air conditioning systems. Sorry if you don't know what HVAC is. Then we now don't have to spend tens of thousands of dollars with every repair. The system's efficient, they operate well. Our utility costs are down, which I'll show you in a few minutes. And then, as part of our remodeling, rather than designing a classroom for a specific purpose, we've designed every one of our instructional facilities so it can be used for multiple purposes. So if you have a physics classroom, it can be used to teach math or social studies. It's not just physics. Now, granted, you have to teach physics there because you need the equipment. But all of our spaces are intended to be multi-use. And the more that we can do that, the more efficient we can be, and the greater opportunities we can provide for kids as the demands and changing demands for education continue. We have more efficient staffing. We analyze the staffing very carefully. Staffing at the secondary schools is now driven by what the students sign up for, rather than us saying, students, you can sign up for what we have teachers to teach. It's a reverse philosophy. It's working very well. Alluded to non-tax revenues. We are in the process of formalizing a foundation. We are formalizing partnerships with businesses. We are looking at things that we can do to bring in revenues to support specific programs rather than always going back to the taxpayer. Less expensive means to deliver services. We continue to make health benefit cost adjustments, continuing to look at energy efficiencies, and we're continuing to manage our outstanding debt. For example, before we started doing this long-range planning, before we took an aggressive approach to the financial planning process, our health benefit costs were $9.3 million a year. It's down to $6 million. That's $3.3 million that we'll be able to free up to take care of keeping teachers in classrooms, to take care of buildings, and to take care of the other needs that we have. Our utility costs have dropped $400,000 when we first started doing the HVAC upgrades. Our debt margin, that means how indebted are we in relationship to what we are allowed to have, the debt we're allowed to have. We used to be at 89%, we're 87%, so it's not quite as good, but we are still very, very strong. We're still rated in the top 7% of municipalities in the country with our debt load. That's our credit rating. Credit rating has always been good here. AA2 is nothing to be concerned about. AA1's a little better. We'd love to be a AAA, like the city and the county is. And we're moving in the right direction toward that. Our savings in repairs and maintenance alone, over the course of the last 3 years, is over $1 million, $1.2 million. Again, based on the investment we've made in new products so that we don't have to continue to repair the old things. That kind of sets a tone for now. We have to talk about the annual budget. That's really what we're here for. The annual budget process is the same as it's always been. How many kids do we have to serve? We think we have 125 fewer kids next year. We're down almost 300 kids in the past 5 years. What resources do we have available? Generally, what revenues? What are we going to do with those resources? And then, within all of that, what's the impact on the taxpayer? You can see our change in enrollment has been a very steady downward trend. This is not the first time it's happened in the school district of New Berlin. It's going down. We're at that stage where baby boomers, we were done having kids quite some time ago, and now the baby boomers are starting to sell our homes, and you're going to see the homes recycle. Next generation will come in, buy those homes, and then they'll start to have kids, and they'll come back in. So it's a normal cycle. Tell by the color of my hair, I've been through this before. It's going to happen again. So it's something that's going on. But right now, we're in a decline, and we're predicted to be in a decline for the next 2 to 3 years. Knowing that, because our revenues are driven by the number of students that we serve, we know that we're going to have a general state aid decrease of 15%, almost $500,000. So what the state helped pay for the education of the students in the school district, they're going to give us $500,000 less next year. The good part of that is that it's a 15% reduction each year, so if you have a smaller amount to reduce by 15%, that number goes down every year. So we're getting closer to the point where the impact on taxes of the state taking away their share is going to be less and less. We do expect a categorical aid increase of almost 12%, $385,000. That's due to a type of revenue that the governor put in the last biennial budget, so we get a per pupil amount. This year we get $100, next year we get $250, so that gives us that $385,000. Our federal aid is going to go up slightly, $92,000. That's mostly because we didn't spend it this year. We're going to get to spend it next year, so we're really just carrying over this year's money. And other revenues, though, are going to decrease by $460,000. Other revenues are these one-time kinds of things that we got. We sold some property. Well, we don't have any more property to sell. We got a rebate for doing some energy work. That rebate's not going to be there anymore. Those kinds of things are going away. You can see our general state aid, it's a straight decline. Has been for quite some time, since the 2008-9. But as it gets closer and closer to that zero number, then the impact on taxpayers is less and less. Our general revenues are broken up like this. Over here to your left, property taxes. Does anything else count? The bulk of our funding in the school district is property taxes, the local property taxes collected from the citizens of the city of New Berlin that live in the school district of New Berlin. We get a little bit of money from the state, a little bit from federal, and then the other are just various miscellaneous revenues. We are concentrating on those other revenues to see if there's any opportunities for us to grow them so that we don't have to continue to see the line on the left grow more than it needs to. Then we move to expenditures. When we go through expenditures, these are the assumptions that we have made. We're going to increase the wages of licensed educators 2.9%. That seems like a lot in an inflation period of 2.2%. But we are in a highly competitive market. There is a teacher shortage. For us to compete for teachers, we need to do things like pay a little bit more. But we're not just paying more because somebody was here a little longer. We're not just paying more because we're competing with the school district across the street. We're paying more when the teacher can demonstrate to us with data, with facts, that that teacher is doing an excellent job in the classroom. In other words, we are paying for what's important, pupil achievement. Other staff wages are going to be between 2.2 and 2.5%. Health benefit costs are going to go up 3%, pupil transportation 1.2, you can read the numbers. Workers' comp, that's a huge jump in workers' comp. The reason is for the last 4 to 5 years, we have contracted our custodial services out. Next year, we're going to bring them back in. They'll be our own employees. When we bring them back in, we have to pay the workers' compensation insurance premium on them. We are doing that to get a higher level of cleaning, get a higher level of satisfaction. It's one of the things that our employees, the non-custodial employees, said, please bring back regular staff for us so that we know who we're dealing with and what we can expect. It will be done at no additional cost from whether we contract it. Open enrollment costs going up 17%. That's primarily, it's a budget-to-budget comparison. My last year's budget was short on how much it costs us for open enrollment, so we're not seeing an increase in kids that are leaving. We're just seeing a more accurate budget that Roger's putting together. Lease payments, this is for our one-to-one initiative, the digital learning initiative. We're providing a personal device for each student. We're doubling the number of students next year that are going to get that device, so our payment for that has to double as well. Then finally, OPEB, that's other post-employment benefits. These are costs that we pay for people that retired some time ago. We are bringing that number down significantly, and we're going to continue to work to do so. Staffing changes, we've reduced district office administration by 2 administrators, down 2 administrators from what we were last year. We are in the process of reducing the district office support staff to another 2 to 3. So we have had cost cutting and reductions in staff here and there. It's all focused in the district office this year. Classroom teachers, we hate to see that number ever be going down. But the reality is we're down 125 students next year. We're down 300 students over the course of the last 5 years. We need to make staffing adjustments to accommodate that. But we are going to need to add 2 technology support staff. We've got 2 in the budget. We're going to start with 1, and then if we need it, we'll add the other. As we add more of these devices for students to use for their education, we need to be sure that those devices are operating effectively and there's a high uptime, as we call it. So we need the staff to be able to support that. So if you look at our budget, 60% of it goes into instruction and direct instructional support, 36% support services, 4% is non-program. Non-program basically is tuition we pay to other school districts or money the state takes away from us to support the statewide school choice program, voucher program, those kinds of costs. Within the support expenditures, the bulk goes to buildings and grounds. That's heating, it's utilities, that's repair and maintenance, that's getting the snow off the drive, that's doing the repairs that we have been doing over the last several years, or the remodeling that we've done over the last several years. Pupil transportation, getting kids here to and from school safely. Central services essentially is the cost of the computers. So as we buy more computers for students, that's where that gets put. Buying the computers for instruction is not considered instruction. You remember the last chart, it said 60% of our cost goes to instruction, but buying the computer itself is not considered instruction. It's considered a central service. Don't ask me why. So, etc. Down to the thing that a lot of people are very interested in. What is the impact on the property tax? Our current year tax levy is $49,730,000. We're getting another $110,000 under our revenue limit formula. We've got a loss of general aid. I said almost $500,000. The impact in the revenue limiter and the taxes of $490,000. And then the school board over the course of the last several years have approved a number of energy projects. The cost for those energy projects is starting to come onto the tax levy now, so it's $517,000. So the state took away almost $500,000. We're asking the taxpayers to make us whole on that. We've previously approved the energy exemption projects. Now we have to come up with the money to pay for them, and then we get a little bit more money in our revenue limit formula. So our proposed levies can go from $49,700,000 to $50,850,000, so up about $1.1 million. The tax rate, on the other hand, will go down. So how much school tax will you pay? Take the value of your home, divide by 1,000, and then multiply it by these numbers, 1135 or 1123. So the tax rate is going down. Although our tax levy goes up 2.2%, the tax rate comes down. Does that mean you're going to pay less in taxes or more in taxes? Depends. I wish I could give you a definitive answer, but it really, what makes a difference is how much of the growth in property value is just inflation. If it's all inflation, you're going to pay more in taxes. How much of the growth in property value is new construction, new buildings, new businesses open? If all of it was new construction, you would see a decrease in your taxes. It's usually some of one, some of the other. Like last year, the growth piece exceeded the inflation piece, so people saw a slight decrease in their school property taxes. I'm hoping the same thing is true for you again this year, but the levy itself is going up 2.2. Rate comes down because property values go up. How that impacts you depends on what constitutes that increase in property values. These are our estimates on what would happen to homes at different values. We do like to say, okay, where are we in comparison to the state when it comes to tax rates? The state is the red line, the blue line is the district. As you can see, several years ago, in fact, for most of this time, there is a disparity. Our taxes are quite a bit higher than the state on an average. We are getting closer and closer and closer to that average tax rate. We think that's okay. We'd like to get closer and closer and closer to where the Waukesha rates are, which is a little bit lower than the state. This is a required report because we have those energy efficiency projects. We need to report to you what our savings are. Our ESCO project, Energy Saving Project number 1, we borrowed $8.2 million. We upgraded the Elmwood, Ronald Reagan, Eisenhower. We did some work here, some work at Poplar Creek, and some work at Orchard Lane. The annual debt payment of that's $213,000. Excuse me, it's $213,000 first year, $416,000, and stays around that $415,000. Our guaranteed energy savings are $220,000. You can see in the first year that we have data, we outperformed the guarantee by over $30,000. We anticipate that number will be true. We just haven't gotten the numbers back yet. And then we have a second energy project. Again, our debt payment is significantly greater than the energy savings because it was an air conditioning project. So you don't get the energy savings, but we do get a significant operating savings because we're not maintaining old equipment anymore. With that, I will turn it over to Joe, and then we'll do questions.
So last but not least, our last strategic goal is that of which you see before you. Recently, the staff at Orchard Lane was recognized by the Department of Public Instruction for their efforts in their achievement levels of the students that are there. They're pictured there with State Superintendent Tony Evers. Also recently, a couple of our teachers, one from Elmwood and then one from New Berlin West, respectively, were honored by former Senator Herb Kohl, who actually has a foundation basically supporting the excellence in the education sector. And we annually have either students and or our staff recognized by Senator Kohl. And I want to touch on, some of the rhetoric that's kind of out there, and want to talk about staff changes that we have for the upcoming school year. We have of the teachers that we do have coming in, 60% of them that were recently hired have 5+ years of experience from other districts. And then of the teachers that did leave, I've heard numbers tossed around of up to anywhere about 50, which is somewhat accurate. We're right around 45. Only 15 of them actually went from this school district to another school district. So what does that mean? It means that we had retirements. It means that we had staff members that had to relocate out of state or out of the area because of their spouses or because of personal decisions that they made. It means that some people had medical issues that they needed to attend to that didn't allow them to continue in the profession. It also means that others decided to just stay home and raise their children, which is something that we decided in my family as well at one point for my wife's career. But of those that left, 15 left to go to another school district. And wanted to just clarify that. And then we did have some adjustments in our administrative staffing. All of those adjustments were made primarily for staff advancement. You're going to actually hear about one person's story here shortly about their advancement in the district as well. We take staff feedback quite seriously. As Roger pointed out, we were getting a lot of anecdotal feedback, some qualitative feedback per survey from staff that they didn't like the quality and or just felt uneasy with the outsourcing of our custodial staff. And we decided to do something about it based on that feedback. I also want to point out that based on our survey that we had sent out, we've seen increases in certain areas, but certainly not where exactly we want them to be. We also have an overwhelming majority of our teachers that believe there's a positive culture within their team and their respective department. And then finally, most of our teachers, which if you do research around employee engagement, engagement is a critical factor that makes those staff members step in and do the work that they need to do. Particularly for us, it's on behalf of our kids. Now, we do have areas of growth, like I said, including the areas that I mentioned before. But, we need to do a better job at the district level of communicating across the board, whether it's with our staff, whether it's with the community, whether it's with our, taxpayers that don't have kids in the school district. We need to do a better job. And then, when you have such a plethora of educators within the system, and I liken it to a classroom of, say, 25 kids. You've got kids with special needs all the way up to kids that are, literally walking geniuses. And having our teachers try and accommodate to each of those individual student needs. Well, we have 320 teachers, and they're the same way. You've got teachers that are either coming into the profession either brand new, or educators like you hear from Mary Jane, who's been here for over 40 years. We like that. But accommodating to their individual needs and their professional learning is something that we need to do a better job of. And then finally, basically, we want to make sure that, we have a compensation model that's basically accessible, it's sustainable, and that it's efficient. And that's something that our teachers have been asking for, and we're ready to roll that model out finally. Unfortunately, after further delineation than what we really wanted it to be, but we finally have it. And we'll be working with our staff throughout the course of the fall to roll that out. So finally, I want to just kind of close our portion, and then we'll actually open it up for some questions and comments specific to the budget. We have 3 stories of educators from our school district, and they each have varying backgrounds, and they each have their own unique individual story. And I'd like to ask these 3 individuals to come on up. And we're going to start with Alyssa. Matt, come on up, and Mary Jane, come right up. And we'll kind of hear their stories and their experiences here in the School District of New Berlin.
Is this on? My name is Alyssa Caudill, and I teach 6th grade at Poplar Creek Elementary. And today I'll tell you a little bit about my experience in the district. So this will be my 4th year in the district, and prior to my time in the district, I was a student at UW-Madison. Initially, I was drawn into the district because I was born and raised in New Berlin. I attended New Berlin Center, which many of you now know as Ronald Reagan. And as a student in this district, I learned 2 really important things that helped shape who I am today. First, I developed a very strong passion for learning. And second, I developed a motivation to succeed in and outside of a school setting. And as a student here, I think that really helped mold my vision as an adult. I also recognize that the School District of New Berlin has very high expectations for students and staff. And I think that expectations that are outlined help with providing opportunities for students and staff. My first year in the district, I was afforded the opportunity to have a mentorship program. And in that mentorship program, I was able to self-select more than 10 professional learning opportunities that matched my needs, my areas of growth, my interests, and my classroom setting. And those professional learning opportunities were amazing and really helped me develop as an educator. My second year teaching, I also was afforded that, and many districts don't offer such a formal mentorship program in their second year, with teachers in their second year. A little bit more about the mentorship program. I was observed and was offered feedback. And another component is something called the Lucy camera. And if you don't know that, it's a very daunting 360-degree camera that you place in your room and you put microphones throughout. So it's intended to pick up on everything going on. And that's just shared with you and someone who's giving you feedback and allows for great growth, even though it's a little nerve-wracking to watch. As I've continued in the district, although I've only been here for going on 4 years, I think that I have been so supported by my administrators. I have been encouraged to take on leadership roles within my building and beyond. For example, this past year I served as the chair of the 21st Century School Improvement Team, in which I would lead bi-weekly meetings, and my team and I would analyze student and staff data, looking at things like including collaboration, communication, critical thinking, creativity, and use of technology effectively in all of our classrooms at Poplar Creek, and that has been really powerful. In addition, I helped develop a day called Jump Into Your Future Day, in which we connected with Junior Achievement and invited many different community members and companies into our schools across all elementary schools, where students get to hear about skills that help them in their career and workplace, which was very powerful. And this past year, every elementary school implemented that day. Ultimately, I really enjoy working in the School District of New Berlin. I feel that I am valued and cared for and supported, which I don't know that every new teacher could say. I feel encouraged to continue my growth, and I can see myself staying in the school district. I can see myself continuing to find and take leadership roles within the district. And ultimately, I would love to be able to serve as an administrator down the road and be able to support other teachers the way that I have been supported in my time. Again, I am Alyssa Caudill, and I am an educator in the School District of New Berlin. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Matt Stebneski. I'm the principal at Poplar Creek Elementary School here in New Berlin. And the start of this school year is actually my 14th in the district. I was fortunate to student teach here way back when I got out of college as a physical education teacher at Poplar Creek when it was Cleveland Heights. And so kind of come full circle now as the gym teacher in the old cafeteria. Now I get a chance to be the servant leader for teachers like Alyssa on their path to grow. When I was in the gym for 9 years, I got an opportunity to fill in for the associate principal who had gone on maternity leave at Elmwood Elementary School. And so I filled in for that, and Mr. Garza had asked me, would you want to, kind of further that into a kind of a dean of students role? And or you know, someday maybe the principal, athletic director, that kind of thing. How do you see yourself going into administration? And I believe I told him no. I said I don't think I would want to, you know, do that. So this might be his chance to say I told you so this evening. But I'm grateful for that opportunity. For me, it's really about two things. The first thing is, you know, kind of my growth and how I build whatever role that I'm in, whatever that position is. I kind of want to build a program. And so I was the, you know, junior varsity boys basketball coach at Eisenhower for 13 years. I started as an assistant, and then I got to be the head coach. I was a co-teacher in the gym. Eventually, I got my, you know, my own classroom, my own. I was traveling as a gym teacher, as a physical education teacher early on. Then I got my own gym for about 5 or 6 years, and so I've been able to grow my role, my skills, you know, my knowledge, as I, you know, do that for kids. And so, one parent at Elmwood had said, you know, you looks like you kind of maybe have this down to a science, or you kind of know what progressions you want, and that's kind of what I want for myself, you know, as I grow in these different roles. And so with the opportunity to move up, you know, I got a chance as a teacher to really kind of hone my skills and provide opportunities for kids to be physically active. I got a chance to, you know, be the dean of students and move into administration, be an associate principal for 4 years, and really see the school and the staff and the kids in a different way than just as a teacher. And now as the principal, I get that chance to not only, you know, hone my skills and, you know, my knowledge and my growth, but I get to do that for others. And so as a servant leader, that's my goal, is to really provide those opportunities for Alyssa, for, you know, the Poplar Creek staff, because the other thing for me is the people. And so I've worked at 4 out of the 6 elementary schools. I feel very fortunate to know a lot of the people in this room this evening. And so for me, the staff is fantastic. I get a chance to see them grow as well. And so, you know, a good example of that, so Alyssa leads a school leadership team. We've seen teachers become coaches. Coaches are, you know, content specialists. Our math coach, who was new last year, she moved up. She's now the associate principal. So I can see her continuing and finishing her career in New Berlin. And I think of the students, and I think of the families. My kindergartners, my first kindergarten group, just graduated last year. So for me to see that has been tremendous. I've had former students that have grown up, obviously, kind of with me as a 22-year-old coach coming out of high school or coming out of college. Those kids that I taught in elementary school, I got to coach them in high school, and now a lot of those kids come back and have helped me coach in the past, or at least I see them at games. My first 6th grade group is now well out of college. And so for me to see some of those young professionals walking through that I've known since 6th grade, some even, you know, younger than that, for me, that's a big part of this, is seeing the growth of the students. And so when I think of all the families and their kids and their siblings, you know, that I've gotten a chance to work with, that is probably the best part for me, is the opportunities that we have given those kids, and to see them come back and then contribute, you know, in many different ways. I'm starting to sit down on interviews where it's former students that I had. And so that's really neat for me, not only with students that I taught and coached, but those that are coming from the district. Our special education teacher, similar to Alyssa, grew up in New Berlin, and is, you know, kind of a product of what we believe in here. And so I am grateful for that opportunity to have spent my entire career here. I'm a school district of New Berlin educator committed to the community of this district, and I thank you for that and allowing me to share my story with you this evening.
Good evening. I would like to introduce myself to you. My name is Mary Jane Whitty, and I have had the privilege of working with and for the school district of New Berlin and the families of this community for the last 45 years. How did that happen? How did that happen? At the end of the 2015-16 academic school year, your board and Superintendent Garza hosted an end-of-the-year picnic for all staff. During that event, Superintendent Garza recognized individual staff members starting with 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 25, 20, 30, 35, 40. And to our district's credit, there were lots of wonderful and dedicated individuals that have worked and will continue to work for the school district of New Berlin for many, many years. And then Mr. Garza announced 45 years. At that time, he graciously introduced me. Now, this was a very kind and appreciated introduction, but what has happened since then has been really pretty neat. In fact, it continues to happen as recently as last week, as conversations between myself and other staff members that resulted from Mr. Garza's recognition of my 45 years of service. I can't tell you how many of our staff members have stopped into my offices and asked me to talk about these 45 years, about the changes, about the challenges, and suggestions and thoughts on how they might maintain their position and membership in the community of educators here in New Berlin. I always loved to share my first experience. Gordon Henham was my first principal and my mentor. What I treasured most about him so many years ago, that he allowed me the freedom to grow as an educator. I can remember going into his office one day and asking him if I could put together a class of students that were very, very high achievers and build a curriculum that would challenge them both as students and as individuals. Now you have to remember, this was 43 years ago. This was way before the Gifted and Talented program came into the picture. His response, as typical of Mr. Henham, was, "Okay, Mary Jane, let's put together a plan and let's talk about it." You have to know that 43 years ago, part of that plan had a community component to it. Well, why is this information so important today? As an educator in the New Berlin School District 43 years ago, I was allowed to take a risk, encouraged, told don't be afraid to fail, try something new, go out there and establish those relationships with the community. I have to tell you, we were just thrilled. By the end of the year, the students and I were given an award by the Xerox Corporation for excellence in academic programming. One of the reasons I stay in this district and encourage others to do the same thing is the opportunity for growth, the opportunity to challenge yourself as an educator, and opportunities to contribute to the future of the New Berlin School District. Another question that I'm frequently asked by parents, teachers, and in fact students is, have you ever been offered other jobs in other districts? Yeah, I have. In other districts, out of state, in the private sector, and at the college level. But I always come back to the fact that this community is a great place to work. I started out as an English teacher, then an elementary counselor, then a secondary counselor, then a half-time associate principal and counselor, then back to a full-time counselor, and now I'm privileged to have a district position as a family and student support specialist. All of these opportunities within one district, a very positive reason to stay and build your legacy with this district. When I have these conversations with our staff, I also talk about the importance of embracing both the educational community and the greater community in which you work. I have been a track coach, a volleyball coach, a ski coach before I messed up my knees, a yearbook advisor, a student council advisor, a forensics coach, a peer mediation advisor. All of these things gave me the opportunity to be part of the school community. All of these opportunities to get to know the kids and their families outside of the classroom. I've also been very involved in our greater community. Wisconsin Dare Officers Education Consultant. I've made presentations for the Marquette Law School. I've done presentations for the Department of Justice. I was invited and spoke at both the Wisconsin and National School Administrators Conventions. I continue to serve on 2 boards here in New Berlin, the Veterans Memorial and the Say Yes program. My message to staff in these conversations is we have to give back to any community that grants us membership. And by doing this, you begin to understand the relationship between education, your community, and that is so vital for longevity in this profession. I've been asked many, many times, do I think the teachers of the New Berlin School District have reason to continue their careers in this district? Absolutely. We work in a community that supports education. We have great parent involvement. We have a history of student achievement, which indicates a history of teacher achievement. We have safe environments in which to work. We have opportunities for growth. And as important, we have opportunities to contribute to the success of this district. The teachers and staff have the expectation that the leadership in this district is supportive, is of high quality, and is experienced. That there is opportunity for professional growth. That the district recognizes that the teachers and staffs and recognizes their contributions to the district data that is published yearly. Our teachers and staff know that the leadership in every single building is committed to that building and the citizens that both work and learn within those buildings. And that all the students and all the staff, whatever their situation might be, their individual challenges or their age, that they will be treated with dignity and respect and value. I am Mary Jane Whitty. Thank you for giving us this opportunity this evening.
Yeah, we have, I'd like to thank our 3 educators for providing their respective testimonials, and I want to let you know that there are hundreds of them in our school district. And, we do appreciate their work. We do understand that the teachers are the front line that make the biggest single factor, the biggest single impact on our student achievement levels. While we may have a turnover rate that is something that we are definitely working on, at the end of the day, our student achievement results are at very high levels and consistently have been. And, for us, it's also not, speculations has come is that the age of our teachers is significant. Well, it's not their age, it's their quality and their effectiveness that makes the difference. So with that, I'd ask Roger to come back up here and join me so that we, and again, we do want to thank you for supporting the school district. You don't understand how far that goes, because it's with that support that allows us to do these great things, and not rhetoric and the otherwise. So we'll entertain questions briefly before we move into the annual meeting portion, which is where you get to cast your respective votes. So feel free to come up to the microphone so that it's actually picked up by the video, and we'll be happy to respond to questions or comments.
Corrine Krull, 19750 West Hickory Trail, here in New Berlin. My question is really just about a document. I was looking for an explanation. On the bottom of our page 14, which is the general fund, includes special education, the proposed budget for 16 to 17. I was just looking for a
What
little...
page are you on? I'm sorry.
14 of the handout we
Thank
received
you.
today. An explanation of the supplemental information on the bottom. There's a line for general fund and then special education fund. And it seemed as though in this year, those numbers are quite different than they have been in the past. And I'm wondering about reasoning behind, looks like an increase in the general fund and a decrease in the special education fund, and what applies to each of those.
An error. There's an error. It looks, the general fund number is flip-flopped on the, the special education, well, the two fund numbers are flip-flopped in the earlier years. I should have caught that. Thank you.
In earlier years, they were flip-flopped,
Well-
or this year?
Actually, no, in earlier, the general fund is the larger number. By a lot. None of these numbers are correct. If you look up to, in the graph a little bit, or in the middle, it says total expenditures. Total expenditures for the 2016-17 year, $55,440,000. The general fund and the special education fund have the correct numbers for that year only. If you go back last year, 2015-16, the total expenditures are $57 million. The $55 million reported as special education really should be in the general fund line, and then the special education number would be the difference. So the formulas that came through obviously are not correct, and I take responsibility for not having checked that before it came to you people.
Yeah, we'll post correction on the website immediately. Any other questions or comments before we move into the annual meeting?
Scott Yench, 6005 South Carrington Lane. Just had a few questions for clarification. In your presentation, you mentioned that there was a decrease of 125 students expected. In the enrollment report from the agenda for tonight's meeting, it was actually an enrollment decrease of 55. Is there a reason for the difference there?
The enrollment numbers that we use for budget purposes, those projections are calculated last October.
Okay.
And then they become, presented to the board, and that becomes the basis of the budget.
Okay.
We have found at this time of the year that there's always a pretty big difference between what our schools are saying are going to show up and what actually ends up showing up.
Sure.
So the number's going to be ending up being a decrease of someplace between the 53 and 125. We're hoping it's not the full 125, or in fact, we're hoping it's much closer to the 53, but for budget purposes, we budget on conservative principles. What's the worst case? That tells us what
So
we're
we're actually anticipating less students than what are saying or what we're expecting will
than
start
what we're hoping for.
in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just so you know, when I do the enrollment projections, I compare my projection each year to my with the actual, and I take a 5-year, actually 5 years only because I've been here 5 years, but I take a multi-year look at it to see what is the level of accuracy. And so our level of accuracy is above 98%.
Okay.
But in one given year, it can be off.
Okay. And then
That's a different number.
In your presentation, you talked about the awards that were given. There was like U.S. News and World Reports and things like that. My understanding of those awards are they mainly rely on standardized testing and other data, basically. Is there any way to measure our success that doesn't involve standardized tests?
Yes,
Are there other benchmarks?
yeah, one of the things that we significantly believe in is making sure that we're going well beyond the standardized test. And, we've got a couple of videos out there based on our College and Career Readiness Initiative. But one of the things that we do, which I'm not aware of any other school district right now, we actually measure student dispositions. So if you check your daughter's report card, for example, there's some certain criteria based on basically your daughter's social interaction, self-control, and several other dispositions that we basically take into account. And then we also have other measures of which we are looking at. And so part of it is actually also the academic and career planning process, which basically allows and enhances students' future planning and future programming, of which the state is actually going to require that every student starting in 2 years, grades 6 through 12, are doing that planning. Part of that planning also includes financial literacy for us, and we strongly believe that financial literacy is a significant skill that needs to be learned before our kids actually leave, their senior year. So understanding what a credit card does before you're at your respective college and you have all these banks willing to offer you a credit card, making sure that you're applying for college loans to the degree that you actually need and not taking the full amount that is allocated to you, maybe in some cases unnecessarily. So we've got dispositions, we've got financial literacy, and then we've also just got our general college and career readiness initiative. But then we also, while it's still a standardized test done through ACT, the exam is called Work Keys, which is required of every junior in the state of Wisconsin. And the Work Keys actually measures non-traditional, basically employee-led or employee-type responses, and not so much the traditional, do I understand how calculus works, or do I understand reading and writing to a certain degree. It's more geared to career readiness. So we've got a lot of work ahead of us, but I do think that we're well ahead of many other school districts in this area, to the point where I've been invited to several state groups, one that's being led by the Department of Public Instruction. We actually had a convening in Chicago, and then we recently hosted an event to kind of talk about these things that we actually need to do, not just in the school district of New Berlin, but actually throughout the state of Wisconsin. We've got a lot of work to do. There are other states that are well ahead of us in this area, so we're kind of stealing some of those ideas, but by no means are we where we need to be, but we think we're doing more than just kind of your average district at this time.
Okay. One of the things you were talking about was the CNA program, and there's a big push right now in the district about college and career readiness and things like that. Is there a way to follow up, like 1, 2, 5 years, whatever is appropriate with the students that graduate, to find out who's getting better than a McDonald's entry-level type of career? Are they actually getting careers, or do they have jobs? Are they in school? Have they stayed in school? Is there any way to do that? Is there any way
We
to
actually
follow
have
up
some
with that?
data points on that right now. It's done through the National Clearinghouse, is what the data pool is called. That's provided to us annually, that gives us some of these details. Unfortunately, that's the only measure that we have, because a lot of it, typically, because once the kids leave us, it's very difficult to extrapolate data that somebody else is collecting.
Sure.
And so we're trying to kind of crack that nut to determine how best can we do that. And actually, that's part of the work that I'm also doing on behalf of that state committee that I mentioned earlier, is how can we do this not only for like our respective students here in the school district of New Berlin, but just our general economy. So it's workforce development, and eventually it's economic development. So, but then those are broken out by economic regions or technical college regions. And so it's a very complex nut to crack, but it's something that we're definitely working on. We do have some data, and maybe that's something, David, we can post. I'm talking to David, our Director of Communications, with regards to at least the clearinghouse data, because I don't think it's something that we typically share with our community, but definitely something we'd be willing to do so.
Okay. Last item about the success rate and things like that, has there ever been, I know in the past we've done like generalized surveys for expenditures in the district and things like that. Is there an effective way, or is there a plan to try and develop some effective way to survey the students and/or families in the district to determine the success of the district at the job that it's doing? That would be another way to measure the district's success that doesn't depend on, U.S. News and World Reports and things like that.
Yeah, I know that we do student surveys. We got feedback on parent surveys that we received that may not have been as holistic as parents would have liked. So it's something that we're working with David and some of our administrators to actually do some research on some research-based methods that are valid and reliable, and not just a survey just to give a survey.
Right, you don't want data for the sake of data and it
Correct.
not have a meaning.
Correct. We want to be able to respond to it, and so I guess to answer that question, we do have surveys that we provide to students to get some feedback. We also have surveys that we provide to parents and get that feedback, but maybe not to the quality level that our parents and/or maybe for ourselves to be able to respond appropriately is something that we're definitely working on as we speak.
Sure, okay.
And if you have any other ideas, we'll be happy to talk.
I'm not sure. I don't know what would be effective.
Sure.
You can do surveys
Yep.
until your eyes go blind, but they have to be effective and mean something.
Right.
You had talked about the post-employment benefits decrease. What are those decreases involving? Are we basically not holding to agreements that we've had to teachers that have retired? Or is it just reductions in costs, but not reductions in basically benefits that they were promised when they worked here? What does that involve?
No benefits that were promised to a teacher that they were promised to them when they left have ever been taken away, or for that matter, any employee. So the cost reductions are coming in twofold. One is the biggest benefit that the post-employment benefit is health insurance. And so as we've seen our overall medical costs come down, they've also come down for the retirees. Part of the cost reduction is the fact that we have a number of people coming off of the benefit program, and they're coming off a little faster than they're coming on.
Okay.
So
They're not losing their benefits that they were expecting to have for their retirement years? and things
absolutely
like
not.
that. Okay. Then we get into the staffing types of questions that I had. Was you talked about, I think Ms. Caudill?
Caudill, yeah.
Sorry if I butchered that name. She talked about the mentoring program for the first and second year teachers. Is there a quantification for the cost of staff development of first and second year teachers versus more veteran teachers?
I don't have those numbers currently captured. When I was going through my mind, if there's a way I could go back and redo them, we can at least get a cost of what the mentoring program costs for new teachers compared to our just a professional learning budget for all educators.
The one thing that I will clarify is that while our newer teachers are offered the menu of offerings, so Alyssa mentioned that she was able to pick 10 different sessions that were personalized to her.
Right.
We actually have many more than that. We actually invite all of our teachers to those sessions, not just the first year or second year teacher.
Okay.
And again, these are things that go above and beyond what we actually offer our rank and file teachers per just our general professional development planning process.
Sure. Yeah, that was just my curiosity, was
Yeah.
getting into teacher experience and things like that. Is there a way to quantify how much it costs to mentor up a new teacher, maybe either a new teacher out of school or a new teacher in the district versus a teacher that's been here 5 or 10 years or something like that? Related to that is, do we know, well, you probably know, but is there a way for us to know an overview of the level of teacher experience both in the district and in their careers by building? We have a lot of breakdowns by school and things like that for students and things. Is there a way to know, by building, okay, we have 10 teachers with 10 years of experience, we have obviously a fabulous 45 years of experience and things like that. Is there a way to know, or for us to find out, because you hear things and without facts, there's no way to quantify that.
Yes, we
You know,
can do.
is there a way to get that information to us so that we have a better understanding of
We
how
can.
that spread is?
We have the data.
Yeah, we do have the data, and we'll be happy to break it down and pass it along.
Okay.
And you wanted it broken down by building?
If that made sense, I guess it would make sense because obviously people have students in the various buildings and you got elementary versus high school and things like that. It kind of give us some ideas of, okay, we've got maybe 50% of the teachers are veteran teachers, or 50% of the teachers are new teachers, or things like that. Or somebody says, well, wait a minute, we've got 10 new teachers in this building, what's going on? Well, maybe it's 5 of those teachers are coming in from a different district, and if we don't know these things,
Sure.
then it's just all rumor and conjecture, and it would just be nice to have details.
Yeah, there was an article that was posted in the New Berlin Now today, actually this afternoon, that kind of talks about this very thing. For us, what's difficult is a perceived problem if you're focused on the teacher's age versus the teacher's ability to deliver their instruction, regardless of the age. And again, not only are our standardized tests showing that, again, being recognized, because the governor didn't come here, nor did UW President Ray Cross come here to talk about our standardized tests. They came here to look at our college and career readiness initiative. They didn't say, hey, you did this well on ACTs and that's why we're here. It was about our entire student programming.
Sure.
And so we like to focus on teacher effectiveness rather than age, because we don't necessarily believe there's a correlation based on, again, the results that we've been getting.
Sure. Do you have a chart of turnover rate over the course of 5 or 10 years?
We do.
Is it anything out of line with what we've seen in the past?
As of Act 10, back in 2011, it definitely perpetuated. Probably the 2 years immediately after Act 10 was enacted, did we see that? Again, even this year, when you think of the teachers that actually left to go to another district, having 15 of them, while we had more, closer to 45 totally leave, it was almost an anomalous year because of the fact that either people were getting promoted to get principal jobs, people were relocating, but it's actually been in line with the previous years. Nicole, would you? Nicole, can you come up, please? Can you speak into the microphone as well? Nicole is basically our Director of HR, Employment Services. She's been doing a lot of research around this.
Put it down.
Are you saying I'm short?
No.
It's fine, yes. So basically, when you look at our data, if you pull it 5 years back, right after Act 10, we had about 73 teachers exiting the district, and that's a large amount of those teachers were retirees. So a lot of our silver flight, if you will, happened very early on compared to other districts, which are now slowly experiencing that as they're implementing some of the tools of Act 10. But since that time, after that first initial year, it's been right around, I'd say, the high 30s to low 40s consistently across the board. And what we're seeing is kind of now that millennial phenomenon where you're getting teachers in, they kind of get their feet wet, get their feet under them for about the first 3 years, and then they say, well, maybe I want to check something else out. So it's a lot of teachers, when we look at the data too, the ones that are leaving for other districts, on average, about 3 years of experience that they've accumulated under their belt. So it's pretty rare for us to lose those really experienced teachers. But our data has been consistent over the last 3 years. And when there's data from other districts, from their HR folks as well, that will show you that we call it the voluntary turnover. So teachers who are voluntarily resigning from a district, we're very consistent with that number. It's anywhere from 8 to 10% of staff are voluntarily resigning all over our area. There's a lot more movement now that we don't have those unions in place. Correct. Mm-hmm.
Nicole, what was the average, again, I hate to dwell on the average years, but that continues to come up. Of those that left this year, what was their average experience?
3 to 5.
3 to 5
3 to
years.
5. And I like to use the mode. So the most frequently occurring number that we're seeing for teachers who are leaving is going to be between 3 and 5 years of experience.
Yeah.
Correct.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that's, I think, we're doing, that's why a lot of districts you'll see are doing millennial studies. We're starting to get data from organizations like Manpower to kind of study this phenomenon of that generation. It's not just happening in education, but it's happening across all sorts of industries, even the private sector, where they're seeing a lot of movement. They train them up, and then they feel like, okay, I'm going to go test the waters elsewhere to see what it's like. Absolutely. Certainly.
Last question then. We can give everybody else a shot. Go ahead.
Can you get on the mic, Scott, too, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. Where'd it go? The administrative staff and levels compared to other other area districts or benchmark districts, are we in line? Are we high? Are we low?
We were definitely high last year, year before. With the changes that I announced up here, we're getting closer. We're still just a little bit on the high side.
Okay, thank you.
Again, main focus as to why we're here is the annual meeting, but we are happy to entertain questions and comments, but we would like to get to that point here shortly.
Hi, Ann Shaflinsky, 5860 Foxhaven Court. I share everyone's concern in the room about spending our resources on instruction. So just two questions from me, if you don't mind. One is about, Roger, earlier you said, I'm sorry, Mr. Dixon, you earlier said that for 4 years you've been talking to us about structural deficit and talking to us about that each year. About 2 years ago, we came to this meeting and you showed us a graph that made my eyes pop out of my head because the cost of our debt went like this over the next several years in the near-term future. And I think you were trying to warn us about what was coming, but I'm wondering if you can just speak to that for a moment and explain how that's being addressed.
The part of my presentation today showed how the impact of that was on the tax levy. So the school board made some strategic decisions to refinance debt or take on some debt to make some investments in our buildings. Those investments have now been made, and so the impact hits the taxpayers this year with that $500,000 increase in property taxes just for that debt. The message, though, is the flip side. Those investments are being recaptured by the fact that now we're not having to continuously repair old equipment. We're not having to continuously take the risk of having 3 days without one of the schools open because something broke down. We are seeing $400,000 a year in energy savings because of those investments. That is just the easy ones to measure. The harder ones to measure is the fact that Andy's staff now can focus on keeping or moving the organization forward instead of always putting out fires. So, yeah, we did talk about the debt. So, the reason I talked about the debt is because there's going to have to be a time we have to start paying it back. That's in this year's budget.
One other thing that was relatively scary about the charts that we were seeing is they assumed that we did not take corrective action each year. So as we've taken that corrective action, we're alleviating that year to the year after, reducing that scary factor, reducing that graph.
Okay. I'm sure we all can wrap our brains around cost savings from energy savings. And I suppose that's what also explains the reduction in the long-range facility maintenance and remodeling plan budget for this year?
Yes, that was, again, very strategic. Part of that money was borrowed monies. Part of it was the fact that over the course of the last 5 years, the district worked real hard to outperform the budget so we could build up a fund so that we can take care of a lot of our building needs. So almost everything that you're saying at Eisenhower, other than the pool, was paid for by using this built-up reserves that we had. So we were able to get that building back up to
Okay.
where it needs to be.
Okay. And I don't know if I'm the only taxpayer interested in this, but I do still have interest in that long-range facilities plan. I've looked for it online. There's a page that references it and talks about it, but only is posted the July 2013 draft of it. So I'm interested to see performance to plan and what's actually planned this year. So I'm wondering if that's public?
It is
It
definitely
should
public.
be,
We'll
I'm
get
not
it
sure
back
why
up.
it's not on there.
Okay, because,
David, if we
I mean, stuck in my head still is the $21 million of unfunded projects that we had like 2 years ago. And I thought I saw that in the presentation tonight too, or in the handout, that the capital expenditures that we'd like to do don't have funding yet. So I continue to be interested in how you're whittling that list down, that wish list, and what that wish list is and what's planned for this year. So I'll look for that online. Again, thank you.
And I do want to speak to that for just 1 minute, is that when we did the long-range maintenance and remodeling plan, the idea was to identify everything that we could possibly be taken care of, add it up, say, okay, school board, this is what the number we have. How do we attack this? But we're just throwing, that included everything that could possibly be wanted. A lot of those we just took off. It says, okay, these are things that would be nice to have, but they're not things that are critical, so that we can focus on the critical things. So that $21 million number is down significantly from the whittling, the normal whittling process. It's also down significantly because we've addressed a number of those. But the plan, the updated plan should be online, and we'll get it up
Okay.
there.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Chrislyn Holiday Wandercheck of 13725 West Foxwood Drive. And I just had a few questions. The first question is related to, Roger, in one of your slides, you had indicated that we spend 60% of our operating budget on instruction. Is that ringing a bell?
Yes.
Okay. So the last data that's reported to the DPI is 13-14 data. In that data, you reported to DPI that we spent 47.3% on instruction. Has it increased 13%?
No, the slide here says
Yeah.
instruction and instructional support.
Okay.
So when we report to DPI, report under their rules, and they define instruction as only those activities that take place between teacher and student. I used to take the instructional support side, which is also the libraries, the curriculum adoption, all of those kinds of things, and I include that in my 60% number.
Okay, so we're still paying somewhere around 47% for instruction. Is that
For direct instruction.
for direct instruction? Okay. And then when I look at neighboring districts, in size, we're most comparable, I think, from the numbers, from student members to Muskego, Norway, and Mukwonago. Sound about right?
Go ahead.
About 4,800 students is what each of them have, okay? It's right around the number that I saw tonight. So they spend in the same program year, 13-14, which is all that's available on DPI. They don't have anything further beyond that at the moment. Mukwonago spends 58.7% on instruction, and Muskego spends 58.6% on instruction. Considerably more than 10%, more than 11% more than what we spend. Is there a reason that you can point out to me to explain that gap? Because it seems to me that the only reason that a school district exists is really direct instruction. I mean, that's got to be number one, right? So why is there such a difference, if you know?
Well, when you're using a percent without taking into consideration all of the numbers that make up a percent, you have half the story. And we've shared this information many times. This district has chosen to, and I think very responsibly, has chosen to incur a certain amount of debt within its operating budgets. So when we have more debt, when we're paying off that debt, and you take that percentage out, it makes the instruction percent look more. Our total budget is greater than, but we have a portion of it going to one thing. The other response I have to that is, so what? I'd rather have my children attend this school district than any of the other area school districts because our performance is so much higher.
Okay, so
I guess, and one could also interpret it as we're getting a lot more bang for buck if you do a comparison on student achievement and the expansion of programs that we have in this school district comparatively to Mukwonago and Muskego and Norway respectively.
Okay, but their numbers, you were saying that the overall numbers are different? Their
I don't
numbers,
think we're saying that.
I'd heard Roger say that, I'm sorry, did I
Said what, Roger?
misunderstand?
It said, so when you take in
That their
the
overall
You
budgets?
take in the total budget,
Yeah,
and there's a chunk of ours that's going for things that the other districts don't have to spend.
because we have this debt, we have a ton of debt that we're carrying, that's part of the reason. When you spend 10% of your overall operating budget on debt, I mean,
And
it's
again,
going to impact.
what exactly is the,
What's the point?
because that's a perceived problem.
My point is that I feel like we should spend more on instruction and not on other things,
Well, are
because
we-
that's where I want my kids to get their bang for their buck.
Sure. And we
Right?
think we are. I mean,
Okay,
results speak for themselves.
In fact, we think we're doing it much more efficiently than the other districts. Much
okay,
more
well,
effectively.
part of the reason maybe why we're doing it more efficiently is that we rank 163rd out of 400 some school districts in the state in what we pay our teachers.
That's
Oh,
naturally
I'm really glad you brought that up.
Yeah,
I was hoping somebody would bring that
Okay,
up tonight.
well, can you explain that?
Yes, I can.
You have something to say about it.
Because
so go ahead.
that is a data point that is just absolutely irresponsible for anybody to have published and anybody to recite.
Okay,
It's
tell me why.
average salary.
Okay,
Average salary has more to do with the age and the experience of your staff than it has to do with anything else.
okay,
And we've already admitted, we've already talked about, we've already expressed the fact, we have a young staff. We're proud to have a young staff. We're proud of that. Our average salary is lower because we have a younger staff. If you do an analysis of the school districts across the board, our average actually has increased faster than the pace of inflation. Mequon, who has one of the highest averages, they have lost pace against instruction. So their teachers have lost spending capacity. Our teachers have gained spending capacity.
but there's nowhere to
over
go
the
but
time.
up, right? I mean, when you start at the bottom, there's
We're
nowhere
not,
to go
no,
but
we
up.
did not start at the bottom.
But 163rd out of 400
It's an average
in a
number.
major metropolitan
If you
area?
put your head in an oven and your feet in your bucket of ice, on average, your body temperature is normal.
I'm really not sure where that's going, but
The point is, it's an average. It's a number that means nothing except for the how
But I
much
think that you
experience
bring
your
up,
Steve-
but
your
I think
staff
that you
has.
bring up an important point, which is the lack of experience. And I think that it's lovely that we have some young teachers. I've had the experience, and I'm sure most parents who have their kids in this district have also had some experiences where we have a super duper young teacher who's wonderful. We've also had that experience where we have a really crappy one who's really inexperienced.
And again,
And that
tell me that-
happens.
But we also
I
have
want to come
crappy
back to the
veterans,
point.
too.
That's
I want to come back to the point.
You make it's an important point. I totally agree with that. But here's my question.
Well, I want to come back to the point. What's the point if we're still getting performance?
Because you
and
got to
achievement
because this is a
levels?
lagging indicator. The lagging indicator is the test scores and the college placements and all of these accolades that you guys are so excited about touting all the time. Those are all lagging indicators. Those are the kids who are graduating out of the system, who have been in the system for 13 years at least, right? So that's a lagging indicator. When you have problems with staff, the age of staff that you have right now is very young. And all you have to do is go to DPI to figure out that we are on the bottom in terms of all the districts around here.
Yeah, so,
Okay.
I mean, there's no correlation between age and performance. So, for example, I had a teacher come to our school board meeting last meeting and said they had minimal turnover at their respective school district. So I then went back and said, well, let me look up this school district, which I will not mention, and looked at their performance compared to ours. ACT scores, have been pretty steady in that school district, but then I looked at the rigor of how they're challenging their students with AP scores. And not only are they having less students participate in AP programming, but they've actually dropped 10% in performance on the 3 or above indicator, which gives you college credit. So, when you talk, and we don't even actually compare ourselves to this school district because they're not, I'm sure if you had MPS, and you look at their years of experience compared to ours, yet their performance isn't correlating with the outcomes, which ultimately is student achievement. You call it lagging. We have yet to see it impact our school district.
You will.
Fair enough.
That's the problem.
And that's your
And
perception.
that's right.
That's your
Unless
perception.
something is
That's not
different,
reality,
Joe.
though.
But Joe, we're not going to know until
do
it's
know.
too late. Until it's too late. But my point is that they always move the posts for every grade, right? And so as my argument is that as time goes on, should you fail to continue to invest in more experienced staff, and I'm sorry that there is some benefit to experienced staff. I know that it's not always, you're right, it's not always, the gold standard, and we have some crappy experienced teachers too, or they're out there, right? I get that. But you can't totally discount experience when you're saying, oh, we're having young staff.
And we're not, but
it
at the same time,
seems like you are.
You can't continue to perceive the problem that doesn't exist. You're saying it eventually is going to catch up to us, but it hasn't. And they were saying the same thing immediately after Act 10 when we lost 70 teachers. It hasn't impacted us. That was 4 or 5 years ago.
Right, but 4 or 5 years isn't the career of a student in this district.
All right.
Right? So, okay, so I think that I'm concerned, and I do think that we do have a problem with teacher morale, because when you look at I'm sorry, I just don't buy the notion that people just leave because they just want to try something new. I mean, I think people leave because there's a better job elsewhere.
15 of them did.
I also
You're
know, right, I also know that from talking to other from teachers in this district, that the district seems to have a policy that when a teacher comes to administration and says, look, I would like a raise, I've done this thing, that thing, that thing. What happens is the policy, as I understand it, please correct me if I'm wrong, because I've heard
First of all, it's not a policy.
Okay, all right, well, whatever, this
It's not a
happens.
policy.
This happens, that they're told, go get us another offer, get an offer somewhere else and bring it to us and show us what you got. But, and then,
That's not accurate.
I've never done that, and I was the HR person for 4 years.
But that's happened in this
The current
district.
HR person
That's
has
not
not done
accurate.
that. So it's
It's not a
completely-
policy.
okay, it may not be a policy, but
Right.
it's happened. My point is that when that happens, all you're doing is encouraging people to leave. And that's I think it's bad if, because I do know that's happening because I know people it's happened to. And I know people have left because of it. So this is the problem. So I think that, do you guys, here's my question. Do
You're
you guys,
mitigating our intelligence. We understand that.
Joe, do you have an actual retention plan for keeping teachers,
We do.
for recruiting and
do.
and keeping teachers? Where is it? Because I looked all over the website,
We'll be
can't
happy
find
to
it.
provide it for you, Nicole. We'll email it to her.
There's a formal policy on that?
It's actually, it's one of our strategic goals.
I
so-
understand
and it
that, but I
wouldn't be
haven't seen the
and
evidence of that.
It's not a policy.
Okay, what is it? Is it a
It's-
plan?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, that's
Policy
great.
is something that's approved by the school board. This is not a policy.
Okay, so it's not to get caught up in semantics, but it's a plan that the district
Correct.
has implemented.
Correct.
Okay, and you
Part of
can
it,
tell
as
me
we
where that
mentioned,
is?
was the compensation model. Another one was responding to teacher feedback based on exit interviews, stay interviews, surveys, anonymous communications to me directly. We have varying opportunities to respond to that. So we do believe we have a plan, not a policy.
Okay, but my question is there a recruitment and
Yes.
retention policy?
No, no,
I'm
not
sorry,
a policy.
You don't like the policy word.
Well, it's not a
plan.
policy.
How about a plan? You got a plan?
Yes.
Okay, and you can get that to me or have
Of
somebody
course,
else get it
of
to me?
course.
I would appreciate that. I'm just I'll make myself a note.
It may
and I'll-
not be what you believe is the best plan or policy.
I just want to see the plan.
Sure.
I've just looked for the plan and I haven't been able to find it on the website.
Okay.
So that'd be great. I will follow up if I don't hear from you in about a week. Yeah. Okay, I know, but I have 3 questions in this in my second one. Sorry. I'll be fast on the last 2, I promise. Yeah.
One more question.
Okay,
then we're done.
so these are, with regard to the debt service, well, I remember, I read the
come
rules.
back
I can
now.
come back if people,
Yeah.
super duper, I'll do that. Debt service. So what is the long-term plan to pay off the 54 million? Because it seems like you got ongoing reductions in state aid,
When will it be
ongoing
paid
loss
off, Roger?
ongoing loss of enrollment, and more deficit budgets on the
When will it
horizon.
be paid off, Roger, the debt?
I don't have the final date,
2027?
28.
And so you're going to be able to pay it off in between now and 2027 when we continue to have deficit budgets, loss of enrollment, and lowering state aid.
That's our plan.
How's that going to work? What gets cut? But you balance it based on a fund balance that you plunk in there and reduce the fund balance.
No, we
right?
don't.
Isn't that
No,
what?
we don't.
Okay, then
We-
something's wrong in the documents that you sent us, because that's what it says.
What you're doing is you're failing to listen. We
Am
said that
I?
we had specifically designed a drawdown of the fund balance to take care of facilities. So it's a one-time revenue we're using for a one-time cost. Our continuous operating costs have always been balanced, always will be balanced, and when paying off the debt is part of our annual operating budget.
Roger, quick question.
Just like paying your mortgage on
Roger.
your home is part of yours.
So you mentioned our credit rating, which if we didn't have a sustainable plan, for example, in my personal life, if I had outrageous debt and not have the capable means to pay it back, that would impact my credit rating. So is this a perceived issue? But what exactly is the reality? What is our bond rating?
Again, the independent agencies that determine whether we have credit worthiness, whether we have the capacity and the capability to paying off our debt, have given us a AA1 rating. The top 7%. So obviously, I'm telling you we're going to pay off our debt. The people that independently look at it on behalf of the debtor, the loaners, have said you're going to pay off your debt. The state statute said the debt will be paid off. The debt's going to be paid off. There's not going to be any problem doing that. It's part of our operating budget. It will be handled just like it has been in the past 10 years for the next 15, 20.
So procedurally, how does that, you say that it's going to be paid off by 2027?
I said I don't know the exact date, but around
Okay,
that time.
is there some kind of a strategic plan to ensure that that happens and it doesn't just keep getting extended? Or is that just something that we go on a year-to-year basis and we see how it goes?
No, as Roger mentioned, we do have a plan.
Okay, where is that plan? Where can I see it?
That's actually in the budget. Shows you exactly when the debt's going to be paid off, what year, what debt is going to be paid.
Where is that? Can you tell me the page? Because I truthfully did not see that. And I went over it twice, so my apologies if I missed it, but I don't know where it is.
We'll get it for you. What's your next question, or are you done?
Oh,
or-
well, Jody wants me to
We
wait.
have more people that want.
That's fine.
So she can
Yeah.
come back up.
If there's time.
Just want to make it fair to
Yeah,
everybody.
that makes total sense. Yeah. If you find it there, I'd appreciate it.
Unless any.
Julie Zimmerman, 12760 West Greenbrier in New Berlin. I love these conversations. I am so happy to hear the feedback and the interaction because I feel that's something that's truly lacking in our district between staff and administration. And that's why I'm speaking up tonight because, again, as I said 4 years ago when I left here, my phone lights up. Are you going to the meeting? Will you please speak? Because as much as I appreciate Alyssa and Matt and Mary Jane speaking, to me that reads, that's administration or someone on the administration track. And I feel there's a voice missing in all of this that is your staff, your teachers, your aides. And I feel like morale is something that is being swept under the rug, that the school board is missing the message that they send to teachers that if you don't agree with something, you're out. There's the door, there's 600 more waiting. That's why you've got people leaving the district. I understand about retirements. I understand moving on to other districts to go into different roles. But to me, 15 is a huge number of people who say, I'd rather be anyplace else but New Berlin. And I love to see what you're showing here about the programs and the rigor. And my children have been products of this wonderful, wonderful district and these types of things. But I feel that the respect for the teachers that are in the trenches making it happen is missing. And if their voice isn't heard, I mean, a survey that's given to staff with so many qualifiers, what building are you in, what grade level are you in, that's not an anonymous survey. So that even the feedback that you're getting isn't real, in my opinion, because teachers repeatedly tell me that they don't answer the way they feel really in their heart because they feel that they can be tracked and targeted. So if you don't have collaboration between the people that are making all that happen and the people running the show, this is a problem. And anybody who knows me knows that I hate speaking in public more than pretty much anything, and I'm shaking like a leaf right now. But I'll tell you, somebody's got to speak up for our staff. So please, figure out a way to let the staff speak. Whether it's Joe, get in those buildings and walk the halls, every single hall, every single classroom. My last 2 years here, I don't think I saw your face in the building once except for going out a side door. And I think you're a great guy, but you need to be able to speak to your teacher and know what's going on in their lives and what are the struggles and what are they working toward and what do we need to work on together? Because your teachers are feeling like they're going into meetings and saying, here's the plan. No, we're not really going to talk about it, but yeah, you can say something, and they're afraid to speak up because then other people who are responsible for their reviews are saying, not in line with district policies. Look at them questioning what we're doing here. Well, you've got amazing staff, and if they don't feel like they can speak to you, then how much better could it be? But we're not giving them the opportunity. So that's my 2 cents worth. I hope you hear it from my heart because I believe in this district. I believe in the teachers. I believe that they need help when they say I need help. When I was in a classroom and saying, I just need an hour of an aide to come in and help me during math or reading, and I'm told, sorry, it's not in the budget. But now we're dozens more people in the district level. But you can't afford another aide? I don't know. I don't understand. And so if the teachers aren't able to speak up and have that heard, it's a problem. So I hope you get a plan together to work it out.
Thanks.
The debt service payment schedule is on page 16. Shows that all debt will be paid off by 2029.
My name is Brad Poquette. I live on 5150 South LaSalle Drive. I just want to say I'm a proud parent of 2 New Berlin School District children, and I think the district is doing a great job putting a good product on the floor. I like the strategic vision, and thanks for using the resources wisely.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
I just had one other question regarding administration costs. So in the budget, it says that it's a 26.52% increase for general administration this year. And there was a footnote about that that said that it was for legal costs and more money for communications. What legal costs are we experiencing?
We regularly have legal costs involved in the school district. Over the course of the last several years, they are able to decline significantly. We have a few things that are taking place that we need to address this next year.
What are those things? Here's the thing. I'm asking because, I looked on the court website. There has been a lawsuit filed against New Berlin School District since 2007 that's been logged on CCAP. So
it has nothing to do with lawsuits. It has a lot to do with labor law, has a lot to do with compliance, has a lot to do with special education, has a lot to do with EEOC, has a lot to do with the ADA, and I'm not going to speak to them any more than that.
We're a $65 million business. Businesses incur legal fees.
okay, but a 26% increase since last year, is that how much trouble we've got?
No. The other part of that is the communications. We have made a significant increase in our communication costs that we're carrying this next year so that we can do a better job of getting the message out.
Okay. And one suggestion I would like to make in terms of communications, I understand that you do hire a lot of people in administrative office. We pay roughly, 10% more than Muskegon, Norway, Mukwonago, and even Waukesha in administrative costs than all of those districts pay. We pay
Roger,
a lot.
have you addressed that?
Yes, I said before, yes, we were on the high side in administration before, and with this budget, we're getting much closer to the norm.
Okay, but we're still much higher than other districts
I think
around
you
us,
took
it
my words
seems.
and turned them exactly opposite. I said, no, we are much closer to the norm now with this budget.
My point is that we're still higher. So that's all the point I wanted to make on that. My issue is, it seems like if we're spending so much on administration, it seems like 2 points. First of all, it seems like we could close the gap on some of the debt service if we could decrease some of the administrative costs more significantly than what we've done so far. So just, an idea.
Thank you.
The other issue is, as far as communications, instead of maybe hiring somebody new, perhaps, as we talked about at the board meeting on the 8th, if the board could have increased communication with the public, I think that would help, because the board are elected officials. They're our government officials. They're the law who has to communicate with all of us. And so if we can have some increased communication with the board, I don't think it would cost you anything more, and it might be more effective.
Thank you.
So it's just something to consider, possibly.
Thank you.
So.
Any other questions? I think we've spent over an hour of questions and comments, and we'll be happy to stick around to answer any last-minute questions or address any concerns. But I think it'd be appropriate for us to move into the annual meeting portion. So, Dave, if you want to. Yeah.
First thing I want to do is I just want to thank everyone who came to speak and share their opinions, comments, concerns. Definitely take them all to heart. The annual meeting, basically, for those who have not been to one before, I am the temporary chair. The first thing that we'll be doing is taking nominations for the permanent chair for the annual meeting. So, with that said, I actually first need somebody, oh no, we've already done that, sorry. I am looking for nominations for chairperson.
I, Nate Nickerson of 15190 West Harmony Drive, move to nominate Dave Maxey as chairman of the service chairman.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. I am required to ask at least 3 times if there are any other nominations. So are there any other nominations? Any other nominations for chair? Any other nominations for chair? Hearing none. I will be serving as chair for this meeting. The next item on the agenda is approval of rules of order and the agenda for this meeting.
I, Susan Manley at 14785 West Wilbur Drive, move to approve the rules of order and agenda as printed.
I have a motion and a second. At this time, I'll ask that everyone who votes in favor raise their placard and hold it up until votes are counted. Those opposed? Oh, sorry, I'm waiting for them to tell me 0, and I guess I could have just looked up. Sorry. Motion passes by a vote of 26-0. At this point, I will appoint Kyle Gulia Von Briesen and Roper as school district attorney as our legal parliamentarian. Next item on the agenda is the treasurer's report.
I, Jody Kugler, 18430 West Hillcrest Drive, move to dispense of the reading of the report.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Please raise your placard and keep it up until. Those opposed? Okay, 27-0. Motion passes. The next item on the agenda, go ahead.
I, Jody Kugler, 18430 West Hillcrest Drive, move to accept the treasury report.
All in favor? Those opposed? Motion passes 26-0. Next item on the agenda is the resolution to adopt a tax levy. Do I have a motion?
I, Susan Manley, 14785 West Wilbur Drive, move to levy a tax in the amount of $50,848,582 be levied on all property, real and personal, within the bounds of the New Berlin School District, City of New Berlin, Wisconsin, for the purpose of financing the educational program of the public schools, including the maintenance of buildings and sites and discharge of debt.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Those opposed? Seeing none, motion passes 28-0. Item F on the agenda is setting the date and time for the 2017 annual meeting.
I, Amy Crosby of 3959 South Victoria Court, move to authorize the school board of the School District of New Berlin to establish the date for the 2017 annual meeting between the dates of May 15th and October 31st of 2017.
Second. I have a motion and a second. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes 29-0. Item G, Board of Education salaries.
Hello, Jeffrey Kurth, 4085 South Adele Avenue. I move to keep the board salaries at $3,500 for board members, the vice president at $4,500, and for the president, $5,000.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes 28-0. Next item on the agenda is to adjourn.
I, Jody Kugler, 18430 West Hillcrest Drive, move to adjourn the annual meeting.
This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for coming this evening. Oh, I'm going to take a vote. Sorry. All in favor? Those opposed? Motion passes 28-0. There was a joke behind you.